Awesome. So we're here to talk about capabilities, APIs, and experiences, blueprints to build interoperable platforms. And really what that means is finding ways to make modular platforms. So we'll dig into what that means, why it's hard, and how we can actually make that easier. So originally, this was meant to be presented by my good friends, Marcos and Mauricio. Unfortunately, neither of them could make it today, so I'm here in their place. I'm Kyle. You can boo me now. Just get it out of the way. If you have any tomatoes, thank you. So yeah, I'm Kyle. I'm from Dagger. Dagger doesn't have anything to do with building modular platforms, but it's something that I am interested in and I work on as well. So I've been at Dagger a bit over 3 years, but my background is like release engineering, DevOps, cloud infra, all that stuff, and all the stuff that's led us to where we are today, which is really the 10 years of Kubernetes. So that's kind of the theme this year. Is we've had 10 years of this. It's unified the underlying APIs for our cloud infrastructure that's let us build this crazy ecosystem that we all experience today. So it wouldn't be a KubeCon talk if we didn't pull this up, right? So there's the landscape. I think almost every talk we're probably like required to pull it up or something. And it's always in like a slightly different context, whether it's meant to like wow you or scare you or whatever. But like the fact that we have Kubernetes as this unified API on top of our cloud infrastructure is the only reason that this thing even exists. And like it's really hard to appreciate the scale of this and like the amount of work that goes into every single one of the tiles up there. So it's really a great time right now to be a platform builder because we have all of these great tools to use. And some of us here at KubeCon, we can get our CNCF shopping cart and walk down the aisles and pick off a tool from each shelf and build our platform, and that's awesome. But the truth is that for most people, and I don't think this is a secret, for most people looking at this, it's overwhelming, right? You can't just look at something and know right away, is this tool a good choice for my platform? What happens if I make the wrong choice? Like, how do I build the right platform for my users? So that's what we're going to be talking about, like how modular platforms can help you mitigate that risk and also like build a platform that you can continue to manage into the future. So first, like let's talk about why it's actually hard to build modular platforms. And I keep saying that word. Hopefully, it's very clear what that means here shortly as we talk more about modular things. But first is like tools in your platform don't have a unified interface. And so really what I'm referring to is like the way in which you manage all the things in your platform. So if you look at like all the pods running in Kubernetes, like do you know off the top of your head like how one individual application is installed, managed, upgraded? Everything has its own way of working, and that's okay because we have that crazy ecosystem, and that's awesome. But there's no unified interface for the platform builder to actually maintain that platform. And the second one probably sounds like the exact same thing, but it's actually the opposite. Tools are not interoperable. So that means if I choose one service mesh today and I swap that out for something different, it's not just going to automatically work with what I have set up. Like there's some leakage. It's been implemented in a specific way. Like the APIs aren't the same between all these tools, and that's okay because they all have their specialties, right? But it makes it so that it's really hard to replace one tool with another. And then abstractions are leaky, and that's something that's really unavoidable, but we're going to talk about ways we can actually mitigate that and try to build the modular platform to let us like actually adopt new technologies. And so all of these problems lead to reduced iteration speed because it's really hard to manage this platform. We have all these tools in it to figure out, go read your internal documentation and figure out how to upgrade this one component. And if this new thing comes out and your team really wants to use this new tool that everyone here at KubeCon is talking about, how do you actually replace the old thing in your platform to use this new tool? Right? It's become so glued into your platform, it's just really hard to do. So let's talk about how we can get there. And one metric for doing this is your platform a soup or a sandwich? And that sounds really strange, but the point is, like, if you look into your platform, can you easily identify the individual components? Can you take a component and change how it's implemented? Like, if I'm building a sandwich, I can add more cheese. I can take some cheese off. But if I have a big soup, it's really hard to do that with the ingredients in a soup, right? Like, you kind of got to start over. That's the same with building platforms. And can you substitute components with other components, right? If I decide, actually I want a different kind of cheese, I can take the cheese off. But obviously, like I said, things are always leaky. If I put on a bunch of ketchup on it and decide, I don't want ketchup, well, that's going to be a bit harder to fully remove. But we're going to mitigate that, right? So this is our gauge for determining like how modular we really are. Is your platform a soup or a sandwich? So taking a step back, like, what do we actually need to be concerned about when we're building platforms? And that goes back to the title of the talk, capabilities, APIs, and experiences. So the truth is, platform users need capabilities, not tools. And this is an important distinction because your users don't say, oh, I need like this, I don't need this specific secret store, I need the ability to store secrets, right? And then as platform builders, we see that need for the capability and we implement a tool that satisfies the capability. And the reason that distinction is represented here is because when we want to change out the tools, all we need to do is make sure that the capability is maintained for the users. We don't need to say, oh, yeah, but our users are using HashiCorp Vault, so we can't ever switch that to this fancy new secret store because they're using it. No, they need the capabilities that provide the secret store. And that's actually really hard for like stateful things like a vault, but if we were talking about like service mesh or something like I mentioned earlier, you really just need the capability to be maintained for the users. And the part where it gets tricky beyond that is that these tools expose APIs that support those capabilities, but between all the tools, the APIs are inconsistent, and so that's something we'll talk about as well. And then the collection of all of our capabilities make up the platform experience, and that's really, as platform builders, that's what we're providing to our end users is a platform experience. They don't care about all the tools or all the work that you put in on the weekends to make sure it's always available. They just need their platform to be able to serve them secrets and provide service meshes and all those cool things. And so what do we actually need to change to be able to build a great sandwich in a platform? And the answer is interfaces. And so I have more of like a software engineering background before I dove deep into DevOps, and interfaces are a powerful tool in programming to provide common ways to interact between components. And that's kind of the abstraction layer of Kubernetes gives us the same thing on top of our cloud providers. We really want that between our tools as well. So the first point here I said like components of a category should conform to a unified interface. I added the qualifier of a category because it sounds nice off the top of my head to say like, yeah, every tool in your platform should have a common interface, and that's really referring to like that management side of things. But as you get into specific buckets of tools like databases, service meshes, they're going to need some specialties, and I think that's okay. But the main thing is, if components of a category have a common interface, it allows you to actually swap things out when you want to. And you still have to maintain that the leaky abstractions, but this gets us closer to being there. So the unified interfaces allow us to build these modular platforms, which allow us to keep up with changing technologies. So has anyone here heard of Kanui? It's a project that basically is an implementation of building modular platforms, right? So let me just pull it up over here, and this is Kanui, spelled CNOE. And really what it is a collection of reference architectures for building internal developer platform. So really when we look back at that landscape and there's all those options, Kanui is like, okay, if you want to build a platform, this is a cool, or this is like a successful map to do that using these specific sets of tools. And so there are kind of tenets of this project are like cloud native, obviously, best practices. So they have teams in their community that look at this thing and say, okay, like we're constantly evaluating the new tools. What's the best thing we could recommend right now for infrastructure as code? And that's part of building your platform. And all of that is modular. So if you look at how they actually describe a platform, here's that word again, capabilities. This is their platform, right? It's all capabilities. We don't see any specific tools in this platform, but we want to provide things like identity, developer portal, secret management, all these things are capabilities. And we even see two separate buckets here, operation and application. So you can imagine those are two separate interfaces for how tools could conform to these capabilities. And then to take that into actual implementation, they say, okay, this is a platform, this is capabilities. This thing's fairly static. Like as our platforms evolve over time, these are the boxes we want to check. But currently, if you want to implement a platform, this is what that looks like. So now we're mapping tools to those capabilities, just like we talked about earlier, right? We want to say, okay, for this specific part of our platform, for this component, we're going to implement this tool. And it provides these capabilities to our end users. And the cool thing is, I mentioned like we're constantly evaluating the correct tool for that component. They have a page here about technology radars, about in the different sectors, what the community in Kanui thinks about the different tools and how well it fits within their reference architectures. Now, I'm actually not part of the Kanui project, just a big fan. And so for my demo, I love giving demos. It's like my whole thing. I'm going to use Dagger. And I think I said at the beginning, Dagger has nothing to do with building modular platforms, which makes it the most fun thing to build a demo with. So real quick, what's Dagger? I'm not going to sell you on anything. I just want to describe why it's interesting to build this kind of thing with for a demo. So Dagger is about building modern software factory. It's really about like containerized workflows, running your tests, CI/CD, that kind of thing. So very different from building modular Kubernetes platforms. But we've got this word components, so that's good enough for me. Let's just go with it. And so with Dagger, we've got tons of these components to actually build things with. These are called Dagger modules, like Artifactory, Helm, literally thousands of those built by our community, even some people in this room. So that's awesome. So with that, I've made the platform builder, and this is my own little demo tool of how you could build a platform builder. And it basically lets you wrap all of these tools and all the different ways of managing them into a common interface so you can actually build that modular platform. Because really, you can't go around the project pavilion downstairs and say, hey, Kyle said that we need common interfaces, so all of you need to do it this way now. That's just not going to happen overnight. It might happen over time. I mean, that's what Kubernetes has done with the cloud, right? So like, we can get there, and like even looking at, getting ahead of myself here, but like looking at telemetry, like how many projects in the CNCF operate over open telemetry, right? It's not something that they're specifically concerned about for the project, but it lets us all mesh these projects together. So this is my platform builder thing. And so we have a bunch of Go code. I don't know if it's fun for you guys to read Go, but this is like my favorite thing. So I'll try and make it a bit entertaining. So like quick intro to like how this works in Dagger. I've written some Go code. I have like a Helm module here because I want to install components in my platform using Helm. And so like the most basic unit of Dagger is like a containerized thing. So I have in my code, I have a Dagger client. I create a container from Alpine Helm, and that literally just pulls from Docker Hub. And then in that container, I'm running some commands. So I can add kubectl, JQ. I can put my kubeconfig in that container and tell everybody where that kubeconfig is. And so this function returns a container. Now the rest of my code can use this to run Helm or kubectl things. And then I have some other functions to do things with Helm, specifically like get the status of a thing, install, uninstall, whatever. So now we have this basic unit, but this is not yet a component. But we talked about interfaces. And of course, in code, you can define interfaces. So this is our interface for a component. And it's really dumb just for demo purposes, but like this is how we want to manage components in our platform. We need to be able to like install, uninstall, configure, upgrade. Sound reasonable enough. I'm sure there's like a super long tail of things that we also need to do with components. But this isn't meant to work. I have a working version that I didn't write that you can use that I'll show after this. So this is the component. Now we need to implement that component for a few tools that we might want to put into our platform. For example, Argo CD. Let's say our teams want to have some GitOps capabilities in their platform. So we want to be able to install Argo. And so literally all I've done is say, okay, in this Argo module, here's its name is Argo CD. This is where the Argo CD Helm chart is. And then it's using that Helm module we just looked at to implement that interface to be able to like install, configure, upgrade, and so on. And then take it one step further to show like we're doing interfacey things and not just random code. We'll do the same thing for Grafana. So like there's the Grafana Helm chart, and we can install, upgrade, whatever. So now we've got two components that follow a common interface, and we want to actually implement these in our platform builder. So this is like my top level thing. This is the tool that I've built that platform builders can use directly to manage their platforms. And it can be used as like a CLI to say, hey, here's my cluster, go put GitOps in it, go put observability, and so on. And so it has two attributes, kubeconfig that lets it do things to my cluster, hopefully safely, and then a bunch of components that I've told it about. And so again, this is like where interfaces are really sweet, because in my code, I have a typed thing that's just a list of components. But now I'm saying, OK, for GitOps, we have this Argo one. So now we're mapping those capabilities to tools. For observability, we've got Grafana. And then within this platform builder thing, I can add a bunch of utilities for the user of this thing to say, like, OK, show me all the pods, show me the status of all the things you've installed. And it can literally go through that interface and look at all the things it knows about and tell me, OK, is this installed? What version is it? Whatever. So we've got a thing now to manage our platform. So this is like, remember earlier we talked about like unified interface. This is a unified interface that we've rolled ourselves because one doesn't really exist outside of Kanui, which we'll get back to. But and there's other like projects out there trying to do similar things. This isn't really about proposing a tool as a solution. This is about proposing a framework of how to think about building your platform so that you can actually keep up with all this changing technology. OK, so we've got this cool thing. I can run it. But as someone who mostly focuses on like CI/CD, when I build this, I actually want to do like test-driven development to like test it. So I'll show you how I actually ran this in a test, and it kind of shows like the workflow of using the thing. So I have my test module. And again, Dagger is about containerized workflows, which means within Dagger, like Dagger is its own container runtime, I can actually just run a Kubernetes cluster. And so I've used a module from the Daggerverse that we saw to spin up K3s within my little test function. And then within that, I'm saying, OK, I've got kubeconfig from K3s, give that to Platform Builder, and Dagger things can be consumed from code or from a CLI. So I'm showing the code side, but in the comment, which is hopefully visible on the screen, you can see like how Platform Builder might actually interact with that. So Platform Builder might say like, install the component named GitOps. And this is how it looks in code, because this is my test functions in code. But the end user would say, install GitOps. And then after that, we want to see, just for our testing purposes, OK, that's successfully installed because we didn't return an error. I don't know how many people here write Go. I think it's fairly common at KubeCon. But that's the Go thing, is it worked because there was no error. So we want to look at all the pods and then maybe get the status. And the status is that thing that says, OK, here's all the components I know about, what's going on in our cluster. And then since we don't have great Wi-Fi, I'm doing this cooking show style where I've run this ahead of time. And we can see, OK, I ran this test function, and it took like 3 minutes to spin up that K3's cluster, install Argo, install GitOps, which then installed Argo, and then get all our information for us. So once that was done, we see the pods output here, and we can see all those Argo pods. And that's just like the default Helm chart install for Argo. So I didn't customize that in any way, but that's like, we see a bunch of Argo pods running in our little test function. And then once that was done, we can see the status of all the components. And it says, OK, GitOps was deployed. And I use like some JQ to get that back from like Helm status or something. And then observability is not installed. So we built this very cool, very advanced production-ready platform builder. But you get the idea of like wrapping things, right? Because the point is like each of these components have different interfaces for managing and installing them. So what you want to do is basically an abstraction layer on top of that, so that as a platform builder, you have one path to manage everything, whether it's like some custom rolled thing or if we all collaborate on some great tool like Kanui's IDP Builder, which I'll show in a second. It'll let you actually manage your platforms through one pane of glass. But then also, like on the flip side of it, like the interoperability, without tools agreeing to some common API, right? Like if secret stores don't provide the exact same APIs, then it's still very hard to switch things over. And so, you know, without agreeing to more standards within these different buckets of components, you might still have to wrap things, right? You might have to wrap your secret store in another API that then your end users consume, because that's the only way you're going to be able to actually swap out components. So I mentioned that there's like a real version of this thing, and that's the Kanui IDP Builder. So it's literally like the same thing I just talked about, but it implements the reference architectures that we saw in this capabilities thing. And so I'll leave that up for a second, but it's easy to find at kanui.io. But they have this thing called IDP Builder that literally you can run, and it does like the real production version of what I just showed in my code, but for real. And maybe I'll take some of my cool ideas from hacking that thing together and see how well it fits into the IDP Builder. But this is the kind of thing that I think a lot of people should be building if they want to build these modular platforms that they can maintain with all the new tools coming out. Okay, so just a little recap. We're almost done here, but like, again, platforms need capabilities, not tools. Your users don't care or shouldn't care what tool is behind the scenes. Really, they just need those APIs to provide the functionality, right? And then they get that whole platform experience that you're building for them. But then you, as a platform builder, get to say, oh, this new tool is really gaining a lot of traction in the community. It has some new capabilities that maybe even enhance what we're doing now, and maybe it's a lot better to run. So it lets you keep up with the changing technologies. Standard APIs lead to a healthier ecosystem. So this is like, if we want to get away from having to wrap the APIs to provide these common interfaces, we really want tools within their categories to build compatible APIs. And OpenTelemetry is a great example of that, right? And you might think like, oh, but doesn't that let them like ditch my tool for like the next tool? Yeah, but it works both ways, right? It lets people come to your tool that are on some other tool. And it just builds our healthier ecosystem because we can all be compatible with each other's tools. And then, obviously, your platform should be a sandwich. Maybe I'll get T-shirts made for that and hand them out next year. And then people will just look at you weird. And then, if you notice one key component lacking from my talk compared to a lot of the other talks you've seen this week, here's one more slide for you. And that's it. So yeah, check out Kanui at kanui.io. Check out Dagger at the similar site. My content is at kylepenfound.com, and these slides that are running in my terminal are at that GitHub repo. And you can actually run them with Dagger because it involves like a few binaries to do things. So it's another cool kind of use case for like, yeah, this whole thing is contained in a little package that you can run. All right, thanks so much for coming. Sorry you didn't get to see Marcos and Mauricio. I hope they get to make it out here next time. And I think we can have some questions. Yeah, you can just yell. I'll repeat it for you. Yeah, so the question was like, does Kanui define those interfaces and abstractions? So like, the platform builder CLI is like the thing that says I want to install like GitOps, and then within this repo, there's actually definitions of like what these reference architectures are. So if you say like add secrets management, it'll implement that stack for you. Does it use CRDs? I'm not actually sure, but it's made by some very smart people, so I'm sure it's sensible. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so like if you define it as Helm charts or CRDs, yeah, I think ideally this abstraction layer lets you not worry as much about that because it can say like this component is implemented with this management interface. So like Helm is buried a bit, CRDs are buried a little bit, and you're really interacting with the platform builder itself. Yeah. Any easy questions?
Yeah, are you really running these slides in a terminal?
Yeah. So if I, so this is Ghosty. So it's got my slides. If I hit Q, I'm back out. So I run slides, KubeCon, and there we go. Very cool. It's I think the project might be archived, but it's by some of the team from Bubble Tea. They make like some great TUI interfaces, and this is my thing. So it can also embed things. So I have like some other projects that can render mermaid diagrams in the terminal. And so for my slides, I have diagrams. It's all in there. And then when you run it with Dagger, all those binaries are where they need to be, so it all just runs. So yeah, it means there's less images, but it's a cool little like nerd snipe flex thing. All right, if you have more questions, find me after. If you want some Dagger stickers, right here. Thanks, everyone.